Good morning, Vivian. Thank you so much for joining today. I feel like this is becoming my catchphrase and maybe I need to try something new, but I really am excited.
I'm
that
so
you-
excited. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, that you are here with us. So you were just showing me your engagement photos and I have to tell you congratulations, right?
Thank you.
But they look so good. Are you how's wedding planning going?
Ooh. Currently non-existent, but we're working on it.
Okay,
So
okay.
I know a lot of people are I feel like society pushes a timeline on a lot of couples, and I am just trying hard not to follow that timeline, if that makes any sense, and not
Yeah.
really please anyone except like me and my partner, and just make sure whatever that timeline looks like works well for us. So wedding planning is currently non-existent, but we're working on it. It'll
I
be sometime next year.
I love that. Now I'm gonna ask. Do you have a Pinterest board?
Surprisingly, no. Maybe maybe I should work on that one.
No, it's okay. But you know what? Because you're here today to speak with us about financial literacy.
Yes.
And this one is going to be a little bit different because usually the mission of Sweet Mornings is to bring people into rooms with executives and entrepreneurs.
Okay.
However, you are here because I got advice from an executive to speak to a financial planner, someone who knows more about it than I do. Also, with my background, my parents, and I've always said this, I admire them, I love them,
100%.
but they did not teach me the financial literacy that some other kids have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. I
And
understand.
so here I am, 40, and just starting to kind of put those pieces of my life together.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for sitting with us and sharing some of your wisdom with the community. We appreciate that.
I'm excited.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So tell us a little bit about your passion behind financial literacy. Why did you get started?
Ooh, it's a bit of a story. Am I allowed to ramble a little
Please,
bit?
I have water and I have coffee
Okay.
and we are good. We're ready.
Okay, so my passion, purpose behind starting financial literacy has a little bit to do with my background as a teacher, my background as a business student, and just a little bit of my own personal history.
Okay.
And so I studied business when I was an undergrad, and I was basically convinced that I was going to go work on Wall Street after I graduated. I had gotten a couple different offers. Um, Completely did a 180 when I decided to take up a teaching offer with Teach for America. And Teach for America is an organization, a nonprofit essentially, that recruits a lot of college graduates, just general people who have interest to teach in high need areas across the United States. And so, um, gave my parents a heart attack, turned down a bunch of different offers, and I decided to go teach in Dallas ISD.
Now, where were you coming from?
I was coming from Atlanta, and I'm
Okay.
originally from California, so I kind of went bi-coastal and then met in the middle somewhat.
You sure did.
Yeah, I really did. So I basically was the Algebra 2 lead teacher and a pre-cal teacher.
Kudos to you. I do not have that math
As
brain.
someone with no teaching experience. So I kind of just was kind of thrown into it, right? My first year teaching kind of blocked it out of my head. It was a little traumatic, but absolutely loved it. And my second year teaching was actually when I started doing a 45-minute session on Mondays, because we were on block schedules, called Welcome to Adulting with Miss Ong. Because a lot of my students were between 16 to 18 years old, right? And I figured it was really important to start talking about some fundamental life skills. In this case, it meant financial literacy because I
100%.
was a math teacher. And it was very basic stuff, right? So it was like, what's the difference between a checking and savings account? What's the difference between like a debit card and a credit card, right?
Right.
But since I was a Algebra 2 pre-cal teacher, I was allowed to take a little bit more complex concepts. So like, what's the difference in interest that you're paying over a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage?
Knowledge that
Right?
I wasn't even thinking about in high school.
Right. And honestly, I don't think my students like fully understood it, but they understood it conceptually in the sense of like, okay, maybe like bigger payments upfront means better for your financial health, like long-term later,
Right.
you know? And so just kind of things like that. And it actually got to a point where my students started bringing in their parents to like after school and be like, "Hey, miss, like, can I bring my mom? Can I bring my dad? Can you kind of teach them about these concepts, especially with investing?" That was a very, very big concept I was trying to teach my kids.
Right. And that's, I'm thinking when I was a teenager, I was living in my own world, not even thinking about my parents, right? Like just trying to navigate and survive myself.
Yeah.
So, what a like testament to your not only knowledge, but obviously it was being shown. Your students cared and they cared enough to bring their parents. And oh my gosh. Okay, tell me more.
No, and so, but you know how you were mentioning you're like, as a teenager, it's not something I thought about, right?
Right.
Well, when I was actually in high school, and I recognize this comes from a very privileged perspective and standpoint, we actually had a class called Life Skills for all seniors you were required to take. And within that class, we learned about investing, tax planning, um, financial literacy concepts that I don't think is common across like most school districts in America. And so it basically grew to a point where students were bringing in parents wanting to learn more outside of the classroom. And it was actually my students who were the ones who told me if I wanted to make an impact in the world, teaching Algebra 2 was not it. And took a little offense to that, but it's okay. But yeah, so basically my students inspired me to leave the classroom, and instead of teaching about Algebra 2, now I kind of view my own job as teaching about finances to whoever is interested at this point.
Right. So that's amazing. You know, you inspired me and others that I've talked to as well to have my child talk to someone who understands
awesome.
because again, and I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but Tony Robbins says that the quickest way to success is to ask someone who's done the thing.
Okay.
And so I recognize my limitations in I don't know anything about financial literacy other than I have an Excel sheet
Love
with some
that.
basic
It's a good
commands
start. Yeah.
to tell me, where my money's going and I can forecast. And that's the extent, though, of my knowledge. Now, I have been, just being genuine and authentic. I am that person who every time I change jobs, right, pulled out the 401k. And now that I am 40 and retirement and health and other issues are
Yeah.
staring me in the face, it's now on the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
Is it too late for me?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I always tell people it is never too early or never too late to get started. You know, you might have to do a little bit more work because just the way compound interest works in terms of um amount in the future is the longer you're invested, the more money it's going to make simply by timing. But you're able to make that up by just contributing more. I never want anyone to really think that they're too late to start planning for their future because you don't know what your future holds for you. You know, you don't know how short or long it's going to be there. And I think as long as you start, that's fine, you know.
So great. So then by that same token, right, then it's never too early to start.
Never too early.
Yeah.
No.
You have met my husband and he comes from a different background. And when I sometimes tell people, we are so different. And they're like, how so? Y'all are both runners and fitness is important to you. I'm like, yes, like that's great. But socioeconomically, we come from two different backgrounds. And this is the story I tell. And either you get it or you don't, which also tells me a little of your background.
Yeah.
But I asked him one day, I was like, I want hot dogs. Great. I'll stop by the store on the way home and we'll have hot dogs for dinner. So he comes, he's making them, and it's like the Nathan's Ballpark Franks, right?
Ooh,
right? With
the good
bougie.
ones. I love that.
I pick him up and I go, oh, this isn't the Bar S Franks.
Yeah.
And he goes, what's that? And
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I got it.
oh, honey, you never have the 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Special. And not knocking it, I will still pick up a pack of Bar S Franks. I will
100%.
still, yeah.
I love a good hot dog.
Right. But so when, there's just that's just an example, right,
Yeah.
of the backgrounds that we come from. And so he is set and he's good to go and he's making great decisions. And so I appreciate you giving me that encouragement that it's not too late, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And other people I feel need to hear that too.
I feel like to that point, there's a lot of critics in the world. I feel like there's not as much encouragement. And so I'm definitely trying to change that narrative because not everyone is, again, privileged enough to come from that type of socioeconomic background. But the information is there for everyone. And the fact that you want to get started, you want to do something, you want to plan better for your future, for future generations, you should never be cut off from that opportunity.
Right. So you spoke to future generations, and we are in a workplace where we have boomers and we have Gen X and millennials and Gen Z. I don't think Gen Alpha's in yet.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think they're still young.
Yeah.
However, we see now younger millennials and Gen Z, they have side hustles. It's not just, you go to work and you put into a pension and you retire, right?
Yeah.
For those generations that have those side hustles, maybe because they're savvy or, they need it.
Yeah.
What are some of the money mindset shifts that they need to have in order to be successful?
So I think you can view it in a couple different perspectives,
Okay.
right? Especially when it comes to side hustles. So what is I think a pretty defining characteristic of younger millennials and Gen Z and maybe even Gen Alphas in the future, I can't really speak to that right now, is they have lived through a lot of different crises. And with millennials especially, we are starting to come into what we see as the sandwich generation. And so
I have not heard that. What is that?
Okay, so the sandwich generation is because millennials are now in their 30s and 40s, right? They are starting to have their own families, have their own children. They're also starting to see their aging parents age out of the workforce. Maybe some are prepared for retirement, maybe some aren't, right? So a sandwich generation is when you are sandwiched between two generations. You're trying to raise your own kids and take care of your own retirement and your own future, while simultaneously possibly supporting the older generation because life is getting ridiculously expensive, right? Things keep going, cost of living keeps going up and up. And so those who have side hustles, there can be kind of two, I think, significant perspectives. The first one can be cost of living is just unaffordable. We are paycheck to paycheck. We need to make sure that we make ends meet no matter what, right? The other one is going to be we see just how expensive living is. We see our parents not being able to retire. I want to give my children a better future. So I'm going to have multiple streams of income to ensure that I can support my future generation, but also the generation that raised me and still make sure I'm okay. So I think there's a couple different perspectives there with side hustles.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure. I'm sitting here and I'm watching you and I don't know if you noticed, but you sat up straighter.
Oh, did I really?
And
I didn't notice that.
No, you got extremely passionate. And
yeah.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm watching you. And of course I'm listening and I'm like, okay, like definitely this is her group. This is her vibe. This is her heart.
Yeah.
When you have clients reach out to you, because this is a podcast about, nurturing and growing, whether personally or professionally,
yeah.
You establish relationships with your clients.
Yes, absolutely.
What are some of the things that you feel are important when it comes to building those relationships?
Honestly, being a good listener, I feel like the world talks a lot, right? There's a lot of information out there. We're always inundated with so much information. Attention is a currency, right? Everyone's trying to fight for it.
Right.
Everyone's trying to talk. Everyone's trying to say something. Listening and active listening is a very powerful currency in relationship building.
What is active listening?
So active listening is basically, how there's three different types of responses when you're listening to someone. The first one is going to be listening to respond, right? So you are listening to someone else while mentally preparing a response in your head to counteract the response or basically like insert your opinion, which is fine, but there is a time and place for that, right? The second type is you listen and you tune out, right? That one is irrelevant in this situation. The third one is listening to understand. So that's what active listening is. And I think my biggest thing with relationship building for my clients, and I mean, I told this to you when we first started talking, before I ever make any recommendations financially, before we ever get into numbers, strategy planning for your future, I always want to know who you are as a person and what drives you, your habits, what is your core, like what are your goals, right? Because every person is different and every financial plan is going to look a little different. So knowing who you are as a person and building a better relationship with you will make me a better advisor to your family in the future.
When we first met, we had a phone conversation, right?
We did, yes.
And then we met in person, and we've met in person now a couple times. And I've always been surprised at how much you remember. You actually remind me a little of my therapist, right? Every time I show up, she remembers, right?
Yeah.
She'll remember things I said. I've been with her now for a few years, and she'll remember things I said. I feel it maybe like the first year I was with her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like what? It makes me feel cared for. But also, you're right. She's great at active listening. And so when we first met and you were just recalling things that I had said, that is a skill that I need to work on. My active listening. I listen. I know I listen. And in my head, I'm already forming a response. I think a little of that is just my neurospicy brain. And I want to and I want to relate. But no, you are 100% correct. So let's go back and speak a little about your students and how you helped them. They, did some of them have jobs? Did some of them have that, because I'm thinking you need a minimum of at least, $100 to begin investing.
Yeah. So, I was teaching juniors and seniors, and a lot of them were working. They would be working after school. Some of my students worked till 2 or 3 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
And a lot of my students, like they did come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and they were trying to help support their own families, maybe their younger siblings and everything. And so with investing, I think there is a common misconception that you have to have a lot of money to invest. But with modern day technology, a lot of different types of platforms, you don't need like hundreds of thousands of dollars. My youngest client that has actively come to me by herself, not like the accounts that parents set up for their kids or anything when they're tiny children, but the youngest client I have who has actively approached me by herself was 19 years old, and she came to me with $100 and she was like, this is my budget. What do I do to make sure I'm starting on the right foot?
Oh my gosh.
So that's what I mean by like, it's never too early, never too late to start.
Oh my gosh, Vivian. And I, and if you're not watching, there's an obvious age gap here between us, and
not that obvious. Dani looks great.
Thanks. And I'm just blown away. And you remind me, I saw something literally yesterday that those that generational relationships are so important.
So important.
Right?
Yes.
Because and just to come at it with an open mind, you mentioned again, I'm going to go back to some of my therapy journeys, but be curious, get into that upper brain, right? Don't approach it as, oh, I'm coming as like a mentor or I know more than you because I've lived longer. And just sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm like feeling like I'm learning at the feet of a master.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's a high compliment. Thank you.
So again, so we spoke to your students and how they started early, and we talked a little bit about, someone in their 30s and 40s and that it's not too late to start. So someone in, what would be the first step someone who's starting later should do?
the very first step in someone who is interested in starting later should do, or someone who's in, yeah. Mm, the first step is to be really honest with yourself. Um, Not typical, something I think you would hear, but the biggest hurdle I see with clients who are starting off maybe a little bit later is they are a little bit scared, which is fine, but some may be in situations that um they aren't prepared to face.
Mm,
And so that might be decisions you made in your 20s, where a very common one that I see, especially today, is racking up credit card debt really fast, right?
yeah.
Because a lot of people weren't taught about credit card debt when they were younger and might still be paying off debt from their 20s and their late 30s and early 40s. And I think the first step, and I speak to this because I have several clients who have like gone through this. The first step is overcoming that denial and being ready to face whatever financial situation you're in, whether that's good, whether that's bad, whether that's ugly, whether it's like a combination of in between. The first step is to be honest with yourself of where you are, and then really be ready to receive and see where you want to be in the future. So that is the first one, because money is supposed to be a very logical, non-emotional thing, but emotions will always be playing a part in finances, which is why I think it's very important to talk about. So yeah, honesty is going to be the very first thing.
It is so hard to talk about money.
Yeah.
It's in so many aspects. I've read that as women, we should be more open about our salaries so that way other women know, this is not the expectation, but this is reality.
Yeah.
And even there's the statistics. I haven't looked this up recently, but I do know that many divorces aren't because the couple fell out of love. It's
Yeah.
because of finances.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading, I'm an EA, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw a job posting earlier this week. Not that I'm looking for a job, but
You're
I
good.
do like to look at job descriptions to
Mhm.
keep myself fresh and
Yeah, I
understand
love
what
that.
the expectations are, just in case I find myself in a time where I do need to look for something.
I love
I'll
that.
be up
Yeah.
to date. AI is a big requirement now in the field.
Humongous.
But this person was looking for all the key and buzzwords that as EAs we know red flag.
Mm.
It's
Mhm.
wear many hats, be able to multitask, think on your feet, be flexible, and all of these expectations that you are expecting of a high level EA for $11 an hour. And it made me really angry at first because I'm
Mm.
like, absolutely not. Like I'm thinking
Mhm.
of the emoji with like just
Yeah.
the arms
Like, no.
crossed. Yes, no. Um, and then it made me a little sad because I realized that for some people, and I'll say it, I mean, the EA is field is not it's diverse, but it is heavily women. Some women have no choice.
I understand that.
And that, it's so hard. So being open and honest about money, and not just for us, but for people who are making these job descriptions, for
Mhm.
people who are setting those expectations, if you want someone at that level, you're going to pay a little more for it.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So I that is just again such great insight that yeah, we just need to get honest with ourselves when it comes to money.
Yeah. Being on it, that's hard though, because money is a very taboo topic for some reason, especially amongst women.
Right.
And so, I mean, women weren't offered a lot of financial rights until the late 80s.
Mhm.
We couldn't have a mortgage in our name until like the 90s. We couldn't
Right.
open a credit card until the 90s without a husband or male figure kind of
Mhm.
being the co-signee for us. So, but women are learning. Women are better investors than men statistically. Statistically. But women also tend to be a little bit more mindful of just, I mean, multitasking can be seen as a bad thing, but as women, that can kind of be a good thing because I think there's a very big misconception in the industry that financial planning is only investments. Investments are like a hot buzzword, and that's what everyone kind of just talks about. There are so many more parts that go into a financial plan that women do think about, right? So women are the ones who tend to think about, okay, so my mom may or may not need to be in a nursing home. Like, she has this much in retirement. What do we do at this point? Like, or okay, if something were to happen to me or my husband as a breadwinner, what would happen to my children? Or, okay, like I want to leave money behind for my kids, but in a tactful way. Like, how do I do that? You know, and
Right.
I feel like I tend to have more conversations with men, like with women, about these things.
100%. I mean, that's why that's one of the things you and I talked about. I mean,
Yeah.
when you and I first started talking, it was really my concern was my child.
Yes.
We're wanting to heal. I don't want to say generational curses, but learn from past generations
Yeah,
and then give them the foundation that they need to be successful
absolutely.
and put out a call on Dallas Girl Gang. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my child. She's amazing. Can someone please help her plan her financial future? And
100%.
that's how we connected. But then you and I, started talking and I go, well, an executive told me I need to start thinking about this. And so, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that we talked about. And it was, my husband and I, there's a bit of an age gap.
Mhm.
And, it had crossed my mind, but I didn't realize there was a tool out there that could help me, um, with that. And
Mhm.
so again, thank you for speaking to that because
Absolutely.
I have seen, with high level executives, when they're making some powerful decisions, their kids are in the room. Like
Mhm.
that, again, is access to knowledge that we
Yeah.
don't have.
Mhm.
But are there any tools out there that you've seen? And I'm thinking books or podcasts or YouTube channels or anything that you've encountered and I'm even thinking now we're talking like different generations, TikTok channels.
Mhm.
TikTok's quickly becoming a search engine as well. Like it's a powerhouse. Any recommendations you have that can give people access to some tools?
Yeah, I mean, I think social media is very powerful. You have to take everything kind of with a grain of salt because there's only so much you can fit in like a minute or 3 minutes, and not everything is going to be applicable to your situation. But I am a really big fan of Investopedia. So,
Okay, I've never heard of this.
Investopedia.com, it can, like, any financial concept, any financial product, like, it'll break down for you. It's amazing. So, I'm always learning still. I think it's important that I'm always learning and growing to make sure I continue to service my clients better.
Mhm.
And Investopedia is my bestie. Love it. There are a couple different financial influencers I also really like. So, Money with Katie, she does have a podcast. She's on Morning Brew, which is a financial newsletter.
Okay.
I like to kind of just give that a glance. Wall Street Journal, they and Bloomberg Business, those are newspapers, online newspapers. Unfortunately, you do have to have subscriptions to them, but I do think it's very, very worth it if you want to be kind of up to date with economics, world trends, things going on. Another one, influencer I really like is Your Rich BFF. And her
I love
name,
that.
yeah. And her name is actually Vivian also. So it's like Vivian too. And she's an ex Wall Street girly who left the business and decided to start talking about financial literacy. Um, and so there are a lot of tools out there, I think. I think the important thing is to be able to discern, kind of like what you were saying in the beginning, like who has already gotten there and can speak knowledgeably to the advice. There are a lot of people out there too who are giving advice but don't have the credibility to give that advice,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of get rich quick schemes on everywhere, actually, not
Right.
just on social media.
And that spans history.
Yeah, that literally spans history. So, yeah, Investopedia is like my best friend. I love that. Really great way to kind of just start learning concepts. You can Google everything. Um, Money with Katie is a great podcast. Morning Brew is a really good newsletter,
Okay.
financial newsletter. And Your Rich BFF, I think she has TikTok and Instagram. Those are really great too.
And for those driving or maybe walking and don't have access to pen and paper or their notes app right now, we'll
Yeah.
definitely list all these recommendations in the show notes
Mhm.
so we can go back and find them.
Yeah, love that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's again, as you mentioned, I'm studying. Well, you didn't mention this, but I am studying for my master's degree in
Mhm.
communication, right? And right now I'm taking a class on strategic communication. And we're learning about that, all of the information that's out there. And people don't have the time to be media literate.
Yeah.
And so many people are just taking it at face value, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
So having these sources come from someone who's in the field, like, okay, yes, this is correct knowledge, or no, this is a get rich quick scheme.
Mhm.
It's very important to do our research and determine what's accurate. So
Yeah.
thank you again for those recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, again, take everything that I just said with a grain of salt too, because advice that is given to the mass public
Right.
may not always be applicable
Or,
to you.
sometimes we find out, sadly, later on that that person wasn't credible, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So everything with a grain of salt,
I used to work in for a bookstore,
Uh-huh.
and we'd always see what are the books that are constantly being returned for incorrect information? The nonfiction, right? Because
Mhm.
you have to have that credibility
Yes.
to sell a nonfiction book.
100%.
So
Mhm.
thank you. Thank you for just shedding some light on
Yeah.
all of the information that's out there for us to consume and kind of cutting through the noise for us. So Vivian, what are some you live I you have such high energy
Thank you.
and you are so busy. I'm so glad you got to sit and talk with us
I
because
love it.
we even when we're trying to schedule to be able to sit together,
Yeah.
I'm coordinating 3 schedules and it can get
Mhm.
pretty challenging.
Mhm.
How do you find the balance in it all?
In like a good work-life balance, I would
Mhm.
say.
And I'm
Mm.
especially curious because I think you are the youngest person that I've interviewed so far. And so,
Oh, I'm
the mindset,
flattered.
yeah. So, um, thank you. But the mindset of some of the other people have been, it's just the season of life you're in. You're going to grind and you're going to have late nights. And Gen Z isn't about that life. It's
No,
no, it's different.
it
And so
is.
I am curious to hear how you find that balance. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer if that
Okay,
helps. If that
I
helps.
was like, are we? Should I give the non-filtered or the filtered version? I'm trying to think of. Um, Honestly, I had to learn the very, very important skill of how to relax. I know that sounds really weird, but honestly had that kind of similar mindset that probably a lot of people you've interviewed before had. And I don't know if this is like a right or wrong thing. Everyone is different.
Correct.
But like my mind was always going. I mean, probably still am a little bit, but a lot better. A very, very highly functional anxiety ridden person.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, anxiety like drove me through the day. But honestly being with my partner was like really helpful. In the last like 3-4 years, I've really had to learn how to kind of like relax and not relax, but learn how to let things go that aren't within my control.
Mm.
And I think learning that skill has allowed me to let go of a little bit more of my anxiety and um relax a little bit. And so with the work-life balance, and I'm not sure the generations older than me would agree, but the younger ones do. I think it's very important to still be able to curate life memories and make sure you're living your life still.
Right.
So I am a big proponent of the motto "Work hard, play hard."
Yes.
um, like really, really, because we're not machines. Burnout is a very, very real thing. And life is, in my opinion, not meant to just work. It is meant to enjoy experiences with those people that you love. That is like the heart of it all. And so usually when I hit a goal or when I get like a really good new client or I have an additional certification added to my name, I make sure that I celebrate that with my friends
Right.
and my family and like my loved ones. And that has always kind of helped me reset and try to learn a little bit more balance. Like, so on weekdays, I'll do happy hours with my clients, my friends, grab coffees, lunches here and there, and not really talk about business, but kind of just like reconnect and not get to know, reconnect and revitalize myself through the
Mhm.
connections that I'm making and strengthening with my community, you know? And on the weekends, like, you know how is it there's the saying like it takes a village to raise a child, right?
I have had that village help me get my child through their senior year.
Right,
Yes.
right. So, but in order to have that village, you also need to be a part of other people's villages and you need to
Mm.
show up where it matters, you know?
Mhm.
And so that is my version of like work life balance is like, yes, I work a lot, I enjoy it, but I make sure that um, I'm still continuing to give back and build my village because they're also going to pour into me. And it's a very good, like, symbiotic relationship in that sense.
I love that answer. And I love what you spoke to because last semester I did a class in market research
Hmm.
and I looked at Lazy Boy. And
Hmm.
so a lot of marketing companies now, especially when you have brands like Lazy Boy or someone covered those sweetheart candies, the staple Valentine's
Oh,
Day
yeah,
candies,
yeah,
they've actually been around for a very long time.
yeah. Mm.
And so now they're dealing with how do we appeal to Gen Z because Gen Z associates this product with an older generation or, with Lazy Boy, it's like, oh, it's my
Yeah.
grandparents, my grandpa's armchair, right?
Yeah.
And so Lazy Boy redid, they came up with a campaign called Embrace the Lazy. And this
Okay.
was at a time where rotting was really coming to the forefront where Gen Z was like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm just rotting in
Yeah,
bed or I'm
yeah,
here
yeah.
rotting on the sofa. And so they had to be mindful, and this kind of echoes back to some of the things we were talking about. They had to be mindful of the word lazy because it could be triggering to some people, especially to women. Women do not want to be seen as lazy.
We do not.
So they had to figure out how to define that word to where it wouldn't offend people.
Mhm.
But yeah, their whole campaign was embrace the lazy. And it was about that, right?
Yeah.
Take that calming moment. It's okay to not. Gen Z was also just being overwhelmed by the hustle culture.
Yeah. That
Right.
was a crazy, crazy culture. Yeah.
Yes. And
Hmm.
so I love that you see the impact
Yeah.
of
100%.
just taking that time and nurturing. And maybe I didn't hear correctly. Maybe again, working on my active listening skills.
That's okay. We love it.
But you know when you are nurturing, it's you're finding moments to fill your cup as well,
Yes.
right? Yes. Okay.
100%.
So it's kind of like you're multitasking there.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. I will say I'm a very social person, so
Yes.
it refills my cup to be around people that I love and meeting new people. It's so fun. Everyone has a story. I love to listen to stories. But then usually a lot of times too, I have to go home and I shall use the Gen Z term. I have to rot. I have to go nonverbal for a couple of hours and just hang with my animals and not talk. And so it's have a little bit of both.
Yeah. So, Vivian, as we kind of wind down and just, have some closing reflections, if someone is feeling intimidated and, I'm kind of in the back of my head thinking, I was someone, not
Not
anymore.
anymore.
If someone is feeling intimidated about reaching out to a financial planner, what would you want them to know?
Reach out to me. I was like, you will not feel intimidated. But for a non-biased answer, I would say what you did was very good, where you interviewed and talked with other people before we decided to kind of work together. I think it's important that not everyone's going to get along with everyone, and that's fine,
Mhm.
right? There are clients that I turn away because we just don't match up, you know? Um, and so I think finding a financial planner, a financial advisor who listens to you and really takes time to understand your situation. Like, you're not just a transaction, you're not just another um client in their book. Like, you should feel important. Like, you should feel that you are heard and understood by your planner. And so probably take time to talk to others, read your reviews on people, word of mouth, referrals.
Mhm.
Honestly, most of my clients come from word of mouth and referrals, and that's probably the most massive compliment I could have, because that means it's like organic relationship building, organic marketing.
Mhm.
But it's like my service, my relationships with my clients is my reputation is good enough where other people are talking and they trust me enough to refer their family and friends and loved ones to me,
Mm.
you know?
I think it's so easy to forget that again in the all of the noise that's out there, right?
Mhm.
That it's still big in Texas.
It is massive in Texas.
Yeah,
Oh my
who you
goodness.
I
Yeah,
again, we hear, "Oh, it's not who you know, but it is." But
it
it
kind of
is.
is.
Your network is important. I mean, that's something I feel strongly about. Now, I have
Yes.
had previous guests that were like, "No, your network there's I don't even go to networking events, and that's fine. It takes many to make the world go round, and many have figured it out for themselves." I mean, he was successful,
Yeah.
but I do find such great value in nurturing the network that you
Yes.
have, not just going out and selling.
Mhm.
When you were talking about interviewing and speaking to several financial planners to find the fit, I kind of it kind of sounds like dating, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. You wanna make sure it's a good fit, you know?
Right, right.
Mhm.
And so great advice. What would it look like for you? Let's say, and I don't know what your future goals are. We're still learning about each other.
Yeah.
And, I kind of want to one day, you're talking about nurturing and getting to know people. I'm like, I'm going to invite Vivian and her fiance to a barbecue one day.
Oh my god, that sounds like so much fun. We love barbecue.
We do. And then you can meet the puppy.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Um, what would a sweet morning for you look like?
A sweet morning. Well, I like to start my mornings in the gym. So, probably a is this with work or non-work or both?
You know what? This is you because when I had to laugh because another entrepreneur that I know is adamant, get your workout in early before the
Yes.
day runs you.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm a really big believer in that. I think I developed that when I was teaching. I would go to like 5 a.m. boxing classes because my life was crazy with students. But yeah, I would probably say like go to the gym in the morning because that's usually the first thing I like to do. Hang out with my animals a little bit. I love different coffee shops. So I probably have a new coffee shop on my list to go try and experience. And then probably meet with some new clients, revisit some old ones. Again, I love meeting with new people. Everyone has a story to tell, and I always love to listen. Um, and then, but I also like to nurture those relationships too. So it would be, and then probably debrief with my partner about it
Mm.
before lunch. So it would be gym, my fur babies, some new clients, some old clients, and then some quality time with my future spouse.
I love that.